What up, guys? Welcome back. So today, the S22 Ultra, I'm just going to go over a few reasons why I'm really enjoying this phone and why I'm very happy with my purchase. I did trade in my Fold 3 for this phone, so one of my favorite phones is heading out the door, and it's being replaced by this phone, so it has to be really good for me to do that. Good for me, right? Might not be good for you, but it is good for me, and I'm going to tell you why. After 1 week, I'm in love with this device. We're just going to start with the build quality and the colors of this phone. We'll start with colors here. So matte black, obviously here, you can see this beautiful matte finish on this design. And all across the board, Samsung nailed it with the colors. The burgundy is fire. The white, matte white is absolutely beautiful. The black, stunning and smooth. I love it. This is Vader right here. And then the special colors, graphite, red, and the blue color all look amazing, but mostly because of that matte finish on here. Matte just looks better on a phone, hands down. Now, it is a little slippery, so throw a case on it. You will need a case. Now, one thing I don't like about the design, again, it's not a perfect phone. I love the look of the camera lenses and the camera bumps, but there is a ton of dust that gathers here around these lenses, and it is annoying. It's there all the time. I'm always cleaning it, and, you know, it's just something you're going to have to live with, even with a case on this device. Now, the actual design, the squared off edges, the build quality of this with the Gorilla Glass Victus Plus or whatever it's called on the front. And in my full review, we'll get into all the specs. This is not that video. The S Pen on the bottom, just the rounded edges. Now, I'm not a big fan of a curved display. This display is curved, but it's not as curved as previous versions of some of their devices. Now, it does cut down for me on accidental touches, and that is the main reason I'm not a fan of curved displays, but this is not that bad. So the design, the color, and the actual build quality, we are going back to the Note design. If you are upgrading from the S21 Ultra and you are looking for the next best thing with a similar design, this is not that phone. Don't think because it's called the S22 Ultra, you're going to get something like the S21 Ultra. This is a Note. Through and through, this is a Note device. The build quality on here, the S Pen on here, the squared off edges, this is a Note. And it's a thicker Note than previous versions. I do have the Note 10 Plus right here, and you can see this is thicker, it is taller, this is bigger and better in every way. Now, side note, I've been using the Note 10 Plus a lot because of this phone, and I have fallen back in love with the Note 10 Plus. I think this is a fantastic device, and I would not upgrade from the Note 10 Plus or the Note 20 Ultra for this phone. As good as this is, and as much as I am enjoying this phone, if you have a Note 10 Plus or a Note 20 Ultra, unless you need the next best thing, the biggest and baddest, and the best camera, in my opinion, on any Samsung device so far, then upgrade. Other than that, speed-wise, very similar. Screen size, very similar. A little smaller, but still a big phone and a big display. Hole punch is a little bigger, but not that bad. Overall, I'm really enjoying this phone again, and I'm going to drop a video on the Note 10 Plus very, very soon. So they nailed it with the color, and they also nailed it going back to that Note design. Now, another thing that I absolutely love, the display on here. We all know Samsung gives us the best displays on a phone, and this just continues in that trend, in that direction. The display on here is absolutely beautiful, and I'm just a huge fan of consuming content on here. It just makes everything a little bit more enjoyable, right? And if we go into settings and we take a look, you're going to understand what I'm talking about, because the Note 20 Ultra, for instance, you couldn't have high refresh rate with a Quad HD screen. On here, that's a little different. So we can go down and you can see we are on a Quad HD screen, and we are also on 120 hertz adaptive 120 hertz. So it will go up and down, but we get the best of both worlds. And on top of that, they have given us the brightest display, so we can use this display outside, and we can use this phone outside without any issues. Now, to take full advantage of that, you do want to go in to settings, into display, and turn off adaptive brightness. And that's how you will be able to use extra brightness and take full advantage of being able to use this phone outside in sunlight, and it does work very well. Now, I leave it off, and if I need it when I'm outside, I will use it. Other than that, the screen is bright enough for most of my use case scenarios. So the build quality, the display, everything about it, even the speakers on here, watching and consuming content on here is just an absolute joy. Now, the third thing that I love about this phone is the camera system. This, I think, is the best camera system on a Samsung device, and it's not even close. I think the pictures on here look really good. They're not perfect, and we still suffer from the shutter lag on this here, but even the selfie video cam looks really good, even in low light situations like you see here. I think they did a really good job, and I think the picture quality on here is really good. Now, of course, we can go in and take photos, and we can go all the way up to 100x to zoom in, 30x and 10x. 100x is just kind of a gimmick to me, but it's cool. You know, I'll probably take a moonshot in my review video of this phone, but the camera on here and the video is, I think, the best that we've seen on a Samsung device. So well done there. Now, one thing I'm not a fan of with this phone is the battery life. You would think, you know, if you look at the numbers, 5,000 milliamp battery on this phone, it's not that good. I think it's, let me rephrase that. It's good. I think it should have been better. And because of the size of the battery, I expected more. It still gets me, for the most part, through a day, around 5 hours, 5.5 hours of screen on time, which is kind of in the middle. You know, we have set a really high bar now because of what the iPhones have done, but also some Pixel phones have given us 6.5 to 7 hours of screen on time, which is fantastic. So 5.5 hours. I get why it drains, right? We are using 120 hertz, Quad HD, a very bright phone. We're using all of that together. Now, you can turn that off and save on battery life, but I didn't buy this phone to settle, right? I bought this phone to use the best of the best, and that's what I want to do. Now, again, 5 hours of screen on time for the most part. That is getting me through a whole day. It hasn't died on me once throughout the day. I usually throw it on charge when I go to bed, and I have around 8, 9, 10% of battery left. But when it comes to battery, one thing I do not like is the standby time. So if I go to bed, or if I'm just chilling and relaxing and I set this phone down and it's around 20%, it will lose. You know, if I sleep for a couple hours, it will lose 6, 7, 8% just sitting there not being used. And it's gotten to a point where I'm closing apps down. I'm making sure the screen doesn't stay on for too long. And I'm just doing things now because I know that standby time on here is not that good. So battery life on here, it's good, not great. I expected more, but I'm okay with it. Now, Samsung, again, their trade-in prices were ridiculous this year, just like normal, and that's why I have this phone. Price-wise, we are getting up there when it comes to the price of the phone, but if you get in early over the first 2 or 3 weeks, they give you a really good trade-in deal, and you can pick this phone up. So a lot of things about this phone that I love after a week. This is not a review video. Again, I've only had the phone for about 8 days, so definitely not enough time for review, but my initial impressions of this phone, I love it. It's a Note phone. Now, the latency on the S Pen, it's very hard to tell when we get down to a latency that is only, 2 milliseconds? It's very hard to tell with the human eye how good that really is. Even on older devices like the Note 10 Plus, this had a much higher latency, and the Note 20 a little better. But even with this, it's very hard to tell. And the S Pen is back, and I'm a huge fan of the S Pen. Now, I don't use it all the time, but taking notes, I do. And, you know, I did sign some documents, right? It's tax season, so I have some documents to sign with this thing. And it's just, look, I don't use it a lot, but when I need it, it's there for me to use, and I'm glad that I have it. It's a lot of fun using it, scrolling through apps, and just using it as a pointer and a stylus. I'm just a huge fan, and I'm glad that it's back, and I hope that it's here to stay. Now, one thing for me that I don't love, again, a lot of companies are starting to promote 5G as a reason to buy a phone. 5G is not really rolled out everywhere and it's not really ready. So I did go in and I turned off 5G. You can do that with T-Mobile. You can go in and turn off 5G and LTE still works fine and is fast enough for me. So whenever I'm using this phone with 5G, it still just spins and spins and spins, but that's no fault of this phone. It is just the network and 5G itself. But overall, look, guys, if you are looking to upgrade from an older Note phone or even an S lineup phone, this is a fantastic device. I'm in love with it. The display is incredible. The colors are incredible. Now, one thing I always do with my phones to make them a little snappier, and don't get me wrong, they are fast and fluid and everything works like it should. The animations are quick, but you can go in and you can turn those off and just make them a little snappier. So I always go into settings and I always go down to build number. And if you click on build number 7 times, it will open up your developer options. And you can go into developer options and you can you can basically turn down your animations, or you can just turn them completely off. And that's what I do. Let me find it real quick for you. I always go into every Samsung device and I go in and I turn off all of my animation. So your window animation scale is off right now. You can go in and turn it. It is set to 1 out of the box, but I go in. A lot of people just turn it down to 0.5. I completely turn it off, and it just makes everything a little bit faster, a little bit more snappy, and I do love it. If you want it a little smoother, you can leave 0.5 on because no animation at all, just kind of jumps from one to another. There's no smooth transition, but I do use that in every phone I have because I just love the snappiness of this phone. It feels really fast. So look, this is a great option if you're looking to upgrade, guys. The S22 Ultra, I will come back in probably 2-3 weeks with a full review, probably after a month of using this phone. But I'm happy with it. I think it's a great phone. Well done, Samsung. That's it, guys. Hit that like button. A sub would be appreciated, and I'll be back soon. Peace.